What if the main reason you're not moving forward has nothing to do with your circumstances and everything to do with a quiet treaty you've signed with your own mediocrity? How many times have you known the exact right action yet selected distraction? How often have you told yourself you're exhausted or overwhelmed when a deeper honesty reveals you're simply evading the necessary friction of change? This is the brutal truth. The life you inhabit right now is the precise sum total of everything you have permitted. That voice within you that seeks ease, that negotiates for delay, that craves comfort, it is not your friend, it is your jailer. The Stoic philosophers viewed disciplined action not merely as a ladder to success, but as the very bedrock of personal freedom. Because until you can command your own impulses, you remain a slave to them. This message is not here to inspire you. It is here to stage an intervention with the version of yourself that must be dismantled so the truer one can be built. If you are ready to cease reacting and begin ruling, if you understand that authentic growth starts where comfort expires, then join this channel. This is the path for those committed to becoming. The weaker self never shouts. It doesn't announce its presence with alarms. It murmurs. It operates in the quiet intervals, not the loud ones. That feeling of resistance when your eyes open at dawn, that isn't fatigue. That's it speaking. When your hand drifts toward your phone, despite knowing there is meaningful work before you, that's it moving through you. That internal voice that sounds so reasonable, so caring, suggesting you've done enough when you know your potential remains largely untapped. That is not your ally. It is your captor. It doesn't need to scream. It has mastered your language. It disguises itself as rest, as balance, as self-preservation, but it is none of those. It is resistance in a clever costume. Its goal isn't to make you stop forever. It just needs you to pause. Wait a little longer, it suggests, but that pause becomes a day, then a week, then a year. This weaker self is cunning. It doesn't fight for control. It patiently waits for your surrender. It doesn't shove. It gently nudges. All it requires is your moment of hesitation. It thrives in that breath you take before committing. It tells you believable stories. You've been through a lot. You'll be sharper tomorrow. It's wise to slow down. Each time you agree to these gentle falsehoods, you construct a life of compromise. Comfort is not the reward, it's the trap. The weak self brokers a deal. Accept ease now in exchange for your strength later. The trade seems harmless until you look back and see the pattern of abandoned aims, fading resolve, and the hollow space behind your excuses. This version doesn't win by overpowering you. It wins because you cease to appear. It expands in your absence. It multiplies within your silence. And it claims it's doing you a favor, protecting you from burnout, from stress, from failure. But in truth, it is shielding you from evolution, because evolution demands confrontation. It requires friction, movement, and discomfort. The weak self desires none of it. It would rather you remain familiar, safe, and stagnant. The Stoics never praised comfort as a virtue. They spoke of endurance, of command, of rising with the weight still upon your shoulders. Marcus Aurelius wrote of having power over your mind, not external events. That strength doesn't arrive by luck. It arrives when you stop obeying the whisper, when you recognize that voice for what it truly is, the quiet sound of self-betrayal. It doesn't scream because it doesn't have to. It already lives within your habits, your impulses, your rationalizations. But the moment you truly see it, you can start separating who you are from what you have been tolerating. The enemy isn't loud resistance. It's the quiet, reasonable voice of surrender. The peril lies in how familiar that voice becomes. It mirrors you. You start to mistake its comfort for wisdom. You begin to believe discipline is extreme, that consistency is rigidity, that ambition is arrogance. The weak self paints effort as obsession and drive as delusion. Over time, if you aren't vigilant, you will lower your standards simply to mute the internal conflict. But lowering standards doesn't end the conflict. It only deepens the future regret. It is in these moments when you feel that pull toward ease, that craving for delay, that you must remember, permission doesn't need to be loud to be lethal. You don't require a catastrophic failure to go off course. You only need the repeated, quiet decision to settle. Settling is a slow erosion. It doesn't feel like collapse. It feels like relief. And that is what makes it so dangerous. If weakness caused immediate pain, you'd resist it. But when the cost is comfort, you seldom notice what is being stolen until it is already gone. Carl Jung observed that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That is the trap. You'll believe life is happening to you, when in reality, you've surrendered the wheel to a version of yourself that never wanted to move in the first place. The weak self doesn't need to overpower your will. It just needs to guide it into a slumber. If you allow it, you'll craft a life that appears peaceful on the surface, but smolders with quiet discontent beneath. That isn't peace, it's sedation. So if you're weary of the cycle, if you're done watching time slip through your fingers, if you're ready to stop negotiating with your own limitations, then you must learn to recognize this foe, not with hatred, but with surgical precision. See it clearly, hear its tone, note when it appears, and then act anyway. Move before it can persuade you. Choose. Order before it can offer escape. Let the day commence before your emotions cast their vote. Let your actions speak before your thoughts have a chance to soften them. This isn't about achieving perfection, it's about achieving awareness. The weak self thrives in blindness. But once you start seeing it, once you stop mistaking its kindness for truth, you begin to replace obedience with command. And that is the genesis of true change. Not flashy, not loud, just a quiet, steadfast refusal to keep saying yes to the wrong version of you. Balance can be a seductive liar. It arrives wearing the mask of wisdom, whispering that you can have it all. Ambition without exhaustion, growth without growing pains, progress without pressure. It proposes a version of effort that is palatable, manageable, easy to recover from. And that is precisely how it ensnares you. Because genuine transformation doesn't spring from what is manageable. It comes from what is necessary, and what is necessary often feels extreme, until the results arrive and prove it was simply what was required. Moderation sounds noble. Who doesn't desire a life that is steady, balanced, in control? But the danger emerges when balance becomes the alibi for avoidance. When "I don't want to burn out" is secretly code for "I don't want to face the heat that change demands." The weak self understands this, so it doesn't oppose your desire to grow. It merely dictates the terms. It permits you to move forward, but slowly, cautiously, quietly. It offers just enough momentum to avoid guilt, but never enough to create irreversible velocity. That is the deception. Feeling like you're doing something meaningful when, in truth, you're circling the same plateau. Stillness, wrapped in the language of self-care, is one of the most perilous forms of stagnation. It feels responsible. It feels intelligent. But examine your own life. Take inventory. You may find that what you've labeled balance has actually become a cage. You start guarding your time, your peace, your energy so fiercely that you never stretch, never strain, never struggle. And if you never struggle, you never grow. The life you desire isn't hidden behind more comfort. It's buried beneath the sacrifices you've been conditioned to avoid. There's a quiet cruelty in the middle path when it's chosen from fear. It asks for none of your fire, none of your edge, none of your power. It asks you to turn everything down, to be reasonable. And if you follow that counsel, You wake up one day to realize you've lost the intensity that once made you feel truly alive. Balance without challenge is mere passive existence. It's drifting. It is the slow, quiet surrender of your potential to routines that never demand anything new from you. Carl Jung wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. That privilege does not arrive gift-wrapped in moderation. It is earned through tension, through inner conflict, through standing at the very edge of what you believe you can handle and deciding to push beyond it anyway. Who you truly are isn't revealed in moments of calm. It is revealed when you choose pressure on purpose. The notion that you can become your best self without disturbing your current self is a fantasy. The current self must be disrupted, shaken, questioned, broken apart. And that doesn't happen in a state of balance. It happens in confrontation. The weak self will label this thinking as dangerous. It will claim you'll burn out, fall apart, lose yourself. But ask yourself this: what if you've already been losing yourself inside safety? What if the identity you're so fiercely protecting is the very thing keeping you small? That voice pretending to care for your well-being may be the primary reason you never step into your authentic power, because power requires bearing weight. It demands responsibility. It commands presence, not excuses. Balance that safeguards your peace at the cost of your purpose is not balance, it's surrender. And the more you rationalize your limits, the more you begin to mistake the absence of chaos for actual progress. But stillness is not always peace. Sometimes stillness is just avoidance. You were not engineered to live perpetually in the middle. You were built to rise. And that means walking into discomfort willingly, letting it refine you, letting it teach you lessons that comfort never could. Epictetus reminded us that no great thing is created suddenly, yet we keep hoping for greatness without commensurate effort, without necessary extremes, without those moments where you shatter routine and become unrecognizable to your former self. Balance seeks to preserve you, discipline seeks to evolve you, and evolution always requires disruption. This isn't recklessness, it's necessity. Growth doesn't ask for permission, it demands commitment. And commitment isn't forged in moderation. It's tempered in the refusal to be only half present in your own life. From afar, balance looks serene, but within it often conceals a quiet desperation, a longing for something more, something bolder, something real. You feel it in those late-night moments of clarity when you realize you didn't stretch yourself today. You feel it when you witness someone moving with undeniable purpose, and it stirs a memory of what it's like to want something that deeply. That ache, that's the part of you that knows balance has become a mask, and beneath it, you're still waiting for the moment you finally commit. Seneca wrote, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." The fear of upsetting your balance has become an excuse to never dare. But balance is not the ultimate goal. Alignment is. Alignment with your purpose, your principles, your latent potential. And alignment is not peaceful. It is demanding, but unlike balance, it delivers. It takes you somewhere. It makes you better. It reshapes you. If you want the life that balance falsely promises, you must be willing to outgrow it, to step into a season that feels heavier, sharper, less forgiving, but infinitely more alive. Because real peace isn't found in merely protecting your boundaries. It's found in expanding them, not recklessly, but intentionally. Choosing discomfort that has a direction over comfort that leads nowhere. The weak self wants you to chase calm, but the strong self, it wants you to chase clarity. And clarity often emerges from movement, from pressure, from stepping so far outside your habitual rhythm that something fundamental within you shifts. That is where real transformation begins. not in staying safe, but in choosing purpose over mere preservation. Aristotle believed we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit, and habits are not formed in ease. They are formed in intensity, in discomfort, in the tension between who you've been and who you are becoming. That is where identity is reshaped, not gradually but under weight, under fire, under focus. Balance is a beginning, not a destination. And if you linger there too long, you forget what it feels like to be fully alive within your own pursuit. You don't need balance right now, you need momentum. You need days where you push yourself so completely that the weak self doesn't even get a chance to whisper. You need effort that requires no justification, movement that seeks no applause. You need to walk directly into the storm of your own excuses and realize it was never about working harder. It was about working honestly. And honesty doesn't always feel balanced, but it always builds something real. Discipline is not pre-installed. You were not born with structure or self-mastery wired into your bones. You were born raw, emotional, wired to react to the immediate demands of the moment. That is the default setting, but default is not destiny. Discipline is not inherited. It is assembled, one difficult decision at a time. One choice to show up when you'd rather hide. One refusal to let fleeting emotions steer the ship. Every time you do what is hard without waiting for the perfect mindset, you're not just making progress, you are constructing something internal, something permanent. The person you admire, the one who moves with command and clarity, did not simply find that within themselves. They forged it, and you are no different. The version of yourself you're pursuing won't be discovered. It must be built, deliberately, brick by brick. Each time you resist the easy path, even in the smallest way, you are laying the groundwork for a new identity, not one handed to you by circumstance, but one sculpted by intention. The weak version of you is born in reaction. It lives in your unguarded moments, thrives on impulse, and feeds on delay. It doesn't need permission to exist. It just needs repetition. The strong version, however, does not occur by accident. It is deliberate. It emerges only when you stop being who you've always been and start becoming who you're meant to be. That kind of becoming demands friction, and friction feels uncomfortable. But if you avoid it, you avoid your own true self. Identity isn't shaped solely by what you do. It is shaped even more powerfully by what you stop tolerating. You cannot evolve into a disciplined person while still clinging to the very behaviors that constructed your weakness. You cannot build a new structure while protecting the debris of the old one. You must clear the site. This means confronting your habits, your language, your mindset. It means holding your excuses up to the light and seeing them for what they are. The old self, fighting for survival through seemingly sound logic. Discipline is not the act of doing more. It is the act of becoming less reactive to your own inner noise. Most people never become who they're meant to be because they keep trying to improve the version they should have already buried. They decorate it, justify it, make it slightly more productive, but they never replace it. And that is why they perpetually feel stuck. You cannot become disciplined while still identifying with the undisciplined version of yourself. At some point, you must draw a definitive line and declare, that is no longer me, not just in words, but in behavior, consistently, repeatedly, without applause. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That is the pivotal shift. Identity does not form through reflection alone. It forms when reflection crystallizes into action, when the principles you claim to believe become the patterns you actually live. Most of us know what we should be doing, but until you begin doing it, especially when it's inconvenient, especially when it's hard, you remain precisely the same. You don't find discipline, you forge it in the furnace of daily choice. Thought alone does not change identity. Conduct does. And here is the most challenging part. Discipline feels artificial before it feels authentic. The first time you act with pure intention, it feels forced. The 10th time, it may still feel foreign, but eventually, the body begins to obey. The mind begins to accept. And slowly, without any grand announcement, it starts to feel like you. That unfamiliarity isn't imposter syndrome, it is the sensation of growth. It feels strange at first because you have never been this version of yourself before. Identity construction is never instantaneous. It is not one breakthrough, one monumental decision, one dramatic turning point. It is the small, unglamorous choices made when no one is watching. It is choosing to rise when your former self pleads for rest. Choosing to speak truth when your former self advises avoidance. Choosing to train when your former self suggests skipping. You become who you are by what you repeatedly do when it's inconvenient. Not once, always. Seneca warned that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality, and that is what keeps the old self alive. Imagination, the fear of how hard it might be, the stories you tell yourself about why you can't change yet, the belief that you're not ready, not capable, not built like that. But the only reason you're not built like that is because you haven't undertaken the construction yet. And the only way to build it is to stop retreating into thought and start investing in consistent action. Discipline is not about self-punishment. It is about self-respect. It is not about rigidity. It is about being deliberate. It is not about doing everything. It is about doing the right things consistently. The new identity you seek isn't hidden. It is simply waiting on the other side of your own resistance. The question is not whether you are capable of becoming that person. The question is whether you are willing to keep showing up until the old version simply no longer fits. Every disciplined act is a vote against who you were, a vote for who you are becoming. And the only way to win that election is to keep voting. Daily, without fanfare, without waiting to feel like it. Identity does not respond to moods, it responds to action. And when action becomes your default, the question of who you are answers itself, not with words but with evidence, not with hope but with proof. The strong self does not arrive fully formed. It is built through days of silence, weeks of resistance, and years of deliberate repetition, through thousands of choices that no one will ever see. And if you can bear that weight long enough, something within you will fundamentally shift. The weak self, the reactive one, the one built on a foundation of excuses, will no longer recognize the person you've become, because it isn't a version of you anymore. It's just a memory of what you once settled for. Comfort feels kind, but it is deceptive. It arrives dressed as relief, disguised as care. But what it truly does is slowly convince you that stillness is the ultimate goal. You reach for it in moments of stress, tell yourself you've earned it, and wrap yourself in it like a blanket. But you don't rise from it refreshed. You sink deeper. The intended break stretches longer than planned. The pause morphs into avoidance, and before you know it, the moment of peace you were chasing has solidified into a pattern of escape. That is the trap. You don't notice it happening because comfort doesn't shout. It seduces. It soothes you into settling. And still, you convince yourself it's healing, that maybe if you rest a little longer, clarity will arrive. But time spent inside a cage, no matter how comfortable, does not set you free. It only dulls your ambition until the walls themselves begin to feel like safety. Every time you retreat into comfort without a purposeful intent, you relinquish a piece of your edge. And it doesn't return quickly. The mind remembers ease, it craves it. And the more often you let that craving win, the more foreign, genuine challenge begins to feel. What was once normal effort now feels impossible. And slowly, without even realizing it, you lose your capacity to face resistance without flinching. There is no victory in what feels easy. There is no transformation in what asks nothing of you. Growth requires pressure. It requires a specific kind of discomfort that doesn't break you but reveals you. And the problem with comfort is that it's just pleasurable enough to keep you from seeking something far greater. That is what makes it so dangerous. It doesn't feel destructive, it feels deserved. But what it truly does is freeze you in place, while time marches forward without your permission. Carl Jung observed that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And this is what comfort ultimately protects you from: the mirror. It protects you from seeing how far you've drifted from the person you're meant to become. It cushions your decline with distractions and justifications. It keeps you preoccupied with numbing instead of reflecting. That is why comfort is never just rest. It is often denial with softer lighting. And when you sit in it too long, it ceases to be a choice and becomes your character. The cage you've built isn't made of metal or brick. It's made of habits, of skipped mornings, of avoided conversations, of countless small decisions that have compounded. And because the bars are invisible, you stop believing they're even there. You simply think you've lost motivation, but you haven't lost it. You've drowned it in convenience, in endless scrolling, in the perceived need to feel okay before you act. You've been waiting to feel good enough to do what needs to be done. And that wait has turned into delay, and that delay has decayed into stagnation. You were not designed for a life of avoidance. You were built to confront. That is why, deep down, you feel that quiet ache every time you let another day pass, untouched by meaningful effort. That guilt isn't something to run from, it is proof. Proof that something within you still remembers who you truly are. The part of you that craves more isn't asking for peace, it's asking for purpose. And purpose never resides in comfort. It lives in clarity, and clarity is earned through confrontation, not retreat. Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." That is what comfort does. It convinces you to crave less, to desire nothing, to trade your innate hunger for shallow satisfaction. And once you no longer desire challenge, you stop growing, you stop moving, the inner fire dims, and what remains is a version of yourself that is no longer a threat to its own limitations. That isn't peace, that's paralysis. The life you want isn't waiting patiently at the edge of your comfort zone. It is buried underneath all the reasons you've convinced yourself that now is not the time. Comfort will always offer you an exit. It will always remind you that tomorrow is available. But tomorrow is not in your hands. Only this present moment is. And if you do not claim it, the weak self most certainly will. That version of you that desires nothing but ease and reassurance is always waiting in the wings, ready to return. And all it needs is your permission. You can feel the difference, can't you? Between the days you chose structure and the days you surrendered to softness. One leaves you feeling heavier, the other leaves you clear. You don't need more balance, you need more truth. And the truth is this: the most meaningful parts of your life, the moments that made you feel proud, focused, truly alive, never came from sitting still. They came from movement, from effort, from leaning directly into the very pressure you were told to avoid. Epictetus said that difficulties reveal what men are, not their ideas, not their intentions, not their potential. Difficulties, the pressure you resist, is the exact pressure that would reveal you. But when you run from it, you never get to meet your real self. You only meet the version that settles, and that version will always choose the easy road. It will always prioritize comfort over command, delay over decisive action, and as long as you follow it, you remain in the cage. But the moment you begin doing what needs to be done before you feel ready, something fundamental shifts. The comfort you once clung to starts to feel heavy, not healing, not helpful, just hollow, and the cage begins to crack. Because comfort cannot survive where discipline lives. It cannot breathe where structure rules. And the more you move under your own sovereign command, the less you will tolerate the very cushions that used to entrap you. The cage was not built in a single day, and it will not be destroyed in one either. But every action you take toward discipline, every moment you override the impulse to delay, is another fracture in its foundation. And one day, without any announcement, you'll realize you no longer reach for the things that used to numb you. You no longer feel safe in comfort. You feel ready in clarity. And from that place, you don't need to escape anymore. You've outgrown the walls. You've reclaimed your command. Aristotle said we become what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. The same is devastatingly true for weakness. You become what you tolerate. If you keep choosing comfort, you become comfort, soft, static, undisruptive. But if you start choosing resistance, not recklessly, but intentionally, you start becoming someone who no longer fears pressure but utilizes it. Someone who doesn't wait for discipline, but acts as if disciplined. That is the shift. That is the quiet exit from the cage. Not with noise, not with rage, but with the repeated decision to move through resistance instead of around it. The comfort you crave doesn't free you. It only makes the cage more pleasant. And you were not made to be pleasant. You were made to move, to build, to become. So stop rearranging the pillows inside your cage. Start breaking the walls. And don't stop until comfort feels like confinement and earnest effort feels like home. Most people imagine change as a thunderclap, loud, dramatic, impossible to ignore. A single defining moment where everything shifts and you're suddenly someone new. But real transformation doesn't sound like a war cry. It sounds like silence. It looks like you alone staring at the task you pledged to do, feeling the immense weight of deciding whether today is finally the day you follow through. There is no applause in that moment, no spotlight, just you, the voice in your head, and the gravity of your own promise. The true war isn't waged in one epic battle. It's fought across 1,000 small, silent skirmishes. When it's early and cold and your bed is warm. When no one will know if you skip just this once. When the only reward is your own integrity and the only witness is your conscience. The weaker version is clever. It doesn't try to overpower you with blatant resistance. It doesn't need to. It just needs you to pause, to hesitate, to entertain the option of later. And it is convincing. It tells you you've done enough today, that you've earned rest, that maybe tomorrow you'll possess more clarity, energy, or willpower. But tomorrow is always a promise, never a plan. And that voice, the one that sounds so reasonable, isn't offering rest. It's offering retreat. The weak self doesn't want you to quit outright. It just wants you to delay, because delay is a slow, subtle form of defeat. The hard part isn't knowing what you need to do. You already know. It's in your plans, your journal, your stated goals. The hard part is holding the line when no one is watching, when doing the right thing won't bring recognition or praise, just personal alignment. That is where most people break, not publicly, but privately. Not because they were weak, but because they expected the war to be louder. They thought it would feel cinematic. But growth isn't dramatic, it's repetitive, it's invisible. And if you're waiting for it to feel powerful before you act, you'll miss the critical moment every single time. There is no trophy for doing what you said you would do. No one will thank you for waking up on time, for putting in the unseen effort, for showing restraint when you could have indulged. And that is precisely what makes this inner war so arduous. The enemy doesn't come from outside. It doesn't wear armor or carry a weapon. It wears your face. It uses your voice. And it speaks in a tone that sounds like logic, but is really just fear in a clever disguise. Its goal isn't to destroy you. It's to distract you just long enough for your inner fire to fade to embers. Seneca warned that while we waste our time hesitating and postponing, life is slipping away. And that is the quiet tragedy of this war. You don't hear the moment you lose. You just drift a little more each day until what was once a burning urgency becomes cool indifference, until the version of you that used to reach for more has settled for merely surviving. But survival is not the goal, not if something within you still longs to truly rise. This war is fought in choices, not grand, heroic choices, but subtle, almost invisible ones. It happens when your hand reaches for your phone instead of toward your goals, when you choose to scroll instead of to reflect, when you promise yourself you'll begin tomorrow instead of simply starting now. And each time you give in, the old self tightens its grip. It grows not because it's stronger than you, but because it has been fed more often. The more you listen to it, the more familiar and true it feels. But familiarity is not truth, and ease is not alignment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." That kind of clarity doesn't come from volume. It comes from discipline, from knowing what matters, even when nothing and no one in the external world is there to remind you. The war being quiet doesn't mean it isn't happening. It just means you must heighten your awareness to hear it, to recognize the precise moment the weak self enters the room and speaks like a friend, and to answer it, not with argument, but with immediate, decisive action. The fundamental mistake is believing discipline requires motivation. It does not. Discipline is what begins when motivation ends. When the mood has evaporated, the reasons feel weak, and the only thing left is your raw decision to stand your ground. That is where transformation actually lives. Not in the dramatic, memorable days, but in the forgettable ones. The ones that don't feel special, the ones that pass without notice. But over time, those unnoticed, uncelebrated victories become the very foundation of everything you are becoming. This isn't about being perfect, it's about being present, knowing that your enemy won't always look like obvious resistance. It will often look like rest, like balance, like compassion. And that is when you must be most ruthless, not with yourself, but with the part of you that wants you to stay small, soft, and unchanged. That version has no power unless you choose to feed it. And the moment you stop listening, even once, you have already taken ground back. Aristotle said we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. And habits are formed in silence. Repetition becomes rhythm. Rhythm becomes identity. The war isn't loud because it doesn't need to be. It already knows your patterns. But now you know its patterns too. And that is where the true shift begins. When you stop needing the fire to feel big and start trusting the quiet, consistent process to shape you. The next time you face that moment, that silent choice between ease and effort, between comfort and character, remember, this is the war. It's not flashy, it's not loud, it's not public, but it is utterly real. And you win it by doing what needs to be done, without lengthy explanation, without delay, and without needing the world to notice. You'll know, and that is enough. We are raised with the belief that readiness is a signal, a feeling that will one day arrive, aligning us with confidence and clarity, banishing all doubt, illuminating the path so everything within us shouts, now. But that day rarely comes, because readiness isn't a signal, it's a story, a comforting, well-rehearsed lie we tell ourselves to avoid the visceral discomfort of beginning. You wait for the moment to feel right before you move. But the truth is, it will never feel perfect, not at the start. And that doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It means you're human. The illusion of readiness is the oldest trick in the book, and most people will spend their entire lives waiting to feel ready, never realizing that action itself is the very thing that would have generated that feeling in the first place. The world does not reward potential. It rewards action. You don't get credit for who you could be, only for what you consistently become. And that process begins in defiance, not in inspiration. You don't wait for belief to land gracefully in your lap. You move even with doubt sitting squarely in your chest, even with resistance coursing through your body. You take the step before you feel stable. You show up before the confidence arrives, and something profound begins to happen. Your movement builds the mindset you were waiting for. Your action creates the clarity you thought you needed before you could start. You've been told it works the other way around, that belief must come first. But belief is often born from evidence, and the only way to generate that evidence is to do the work. The people who cross the threshold into genuine transformation aren't the ones who feel the most ready. They are the ones who feel the fear, the fog, the hesitation, and act anyway, not recklessly, not impulsively, but with discipline, with conviction, with the understanding that perfection is not a prerequisite for progress. In fact, perfectionism is often the primary barrier. The weaker version of you thrives on delay. It doesn't scream, "Quit!" It softly whispers, "Not yet. Let's wait until we're more prepared. Let's gather more information. Let's rest first, then begin. Tomorrow." But what that version doesn't tell you is that tomorrow brings the same doubts, the same hesitation, and before long, tomorrow becomes next month, which becomes next year. And eventually, you're not waiting anymore. You're stuck. Stuck in an endless cycle of planning, preparing, researching, everything except starting, because you believed the lie that readiness would someday knock politely on your door. One of the most common ways we waste our potential is by mistaking mental rehearsal for genuine movement. You can visualize, journal, and affirm all you want, but none of it replaces the raw power of stepping into discomfort, of doing the thing unprepared, not because you're careless, but because you've realized that preparation has become your excuse. Some of your most pivotal decisions will arrive before you feel emotionally ready to make them, and that's okay, because emotional alignment often lags behind decisive action. You don't need more time, you need more truth, and the truth is this: no moment will ever feel perfect enough. Readiness is a moving target. Every time you get closer to it, it shifts further away. That's because your standards for ready inflate with your delay. The more time you give yourself to prepare, the more pressure you place on the starting line. Eventually, the start feels so monumental that it collapses under its own weight. That is how resistance wins, not by stopping you, but by convincing you to perfect your approach until it's too cumbersome to begin. The disciplined mind doesn't chase readiness. It builds momentum through rhythm, not motivation. It understands that consistency doesn't begin with a surge of energy. It begins with a bedrock of commitment. And commitment doesn't care about your mood. It only asks one question: are you still moving when the feelings have faded? Because they will fade. And when they do, your only lifeline is structure, not inspiration, not emotion, just action backed by a decision you've already made. Epictetus taught, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. That's the difference. The undisciplined self waits to feel capable. The disciplined one moves as if it already is, not from arrogance, but from alignment, from understanding that action doesn't follow belief, it forges it. You become disciplined by acting disciplined. You become consistent by being consistent. Identity doesn't wait for readiness. It forms from repetition, from refusing to let the internal weather dictate the work in front of you. And that refusal doesn't feel glamorous, it feels quiet, awkward, uncomfortable. But inside that discomfort lies your real edge. Not the one you show the world, but the one that appears when you're alone, uncertain, and still choose to move forward. That's how true strength is built. Not in ideal conditions, but in inconvenient ones. Not when you feel bold, but when you feel broken and still show up anyway. Aristotle once said, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. And to truly know yourself, you have to move beyond theory. You have to test your limits. You have to stretch beyond your current patterns. And that means starting before you're confident. Not because you want to, but because you refuse to keep lying to yourself about needing more time. That's not truth. That's fear wearing strategy as a mask. The longer you wait, the louder the doubts become, the heavier the first step feels. But once you take it, once you step into motion, the fog begins to lift. It won't vanish all at once, but it will thin. And with each move, you'll see more, understand more, trust yourself more. Not because you figured everything out, but because you didn't wait to have everything figured out before acting. Readiness is not a requirement, it's a result. And the sooner you release the need to feel ready, the sooner you'll become someone who acts from principle, not from permission. The weak self will always beg for more time. The strong self doesn't ask. It moves, quietly, daily, without debate. And the more you do that, the more you'll realize what you were truly waiting for wasn't readiness. It was courage. And courage doesn't wait, it leads. If this philosophy of command over comfort resonates with you, take action. Like this video, it directly supports this channel's mission. Share it with one person who needs to hear this confrontation, and subscribe to Stoic Mindset Mastery for weekly guidance in building an unshakable, self-directed life. Your moment of command is now, not when you feel ready. Now.